what we're going to talk about right now is we're going to talk about the greatest common factor and how to figure that out using the upside down birthday cake method. And just to review, the greatest common factor is the biggest number that goes into two different numbers. So for example, if we have 60 and 45, the greatest common factor is actually going to be 15, because 15 divides into 60 and 15 divides into 45, and 15 is the biggest number that divides into both. But let's look and see how that problem works. So the one way to think about it is to go ahead and do this. 60 and 45. Okay, so what can I pull out of both of those two numbers? What can I divide into both those two numbers? You might get 15 right off the bat, but if you didn't and you realized, you know what, I know that I can divide 5 into both those numbers. That's great. When you divide 5 into that number, you end up with, let's hear, 5 times what equals 60? Well, the answer is 12. And then 5 times what equals 45? And the answer is 9. Okay, great. So now we go down here and we say, okay, well, what's the number? Is there any number that divides into both 12 and 9? Well, let's see here. And that number is going to be 3, because 3 divides into both 12 and 9. And when it does, you end up with 4 and 3, because 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 times 3 is 9. So what you have here is, when you're figuring out what the greatest common factor is, the biggest number that goes into both 60 and 45 is going to be right here. Isn't that kind of cool? 5 times 3 equals 15, and that's what your answer is. Let's try another one just to see that that works again. So let's say instead we're dealing with 120 and, I don't know, let's say 300. Okay, so what number goes into both those? Well, if you wanted to, you could do prime factorization. You don't have to. I'm not going to do prime factorization. I know, since they both end on zeros, that 10 divides into both. So now what I have is, I have 10 times 12 equals 120, and 10 times 30 equals 300. So now, am I done? Does anything go into 12 and 30? Yeah, it does, actually. 3 goes into both those. So it's going to be 3 times 4 equals 12, and 3 times 10 equals 30. And so now I look again. Is there anything that goes into both those? Yes, because both of them are even. So it's going to be 2 into both those. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 2 times 5 is going to be 10. So when it comes right down to it, the greatest common factor of these two numbers, 120 and 300, is actually going to be this right here. 10 times 3 times 2, which is going to be 60. And that makes perfect sense, because 60 times 2 is equal to 120, and 60 times 5 is equal to 300. And there we go.